y'all don't mind, we'll go ahead and get started and get this meeting going. I appreciate you coming. Sorry that we're in the basement. We've got the upstairs currently, if you did try to go there first, it's currently being remodeled and under construction. And so we hope to, by the end of next week, be able to move everything back into the upstairs into the meeting room, and we'll be able to use it as we go forward. We've got a few items on the agenda that we'll get kicked off with. I know we've invited Ms. Summers with the library to come. They've started their renovation, so I was going to see if you could give an update on where you work.
Where would you like the meeting?
Right up here is fine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're not very formal in the basement environment.
That's fine, there's
so-
some handouts for you all. So I just wanted to give you an update on what's going on with the library and our project that's coming up that we've all been hearing about for so many years, and we're finally getting closer. Our design team, I've got listed there, Carlson Design Group and Craig Malden Davis, the contractor, Hogan Construction. But if you've noticed, there is no construction going on at the moment. We thought we would be under construction by this time, but it is delayed due to the supply chain issues in the steel industry. They've mentioned steel joists in particular being having a really long lead time, but all of that stuff was ordered, a couple months ago, so we are in line for that. They think that we'll mobilize by November 22nd and then have a completion date of June 30th, 2022. But of course, how lots of things could happen, but we're very hopeful. And we will have our architect attending the next library board meeting on August 10th next week, which will be here. And thank you for allowing us to use the room for our board meetings, because we are in temporary location, which I will talk about in just a minute. The books and furniture and equipment that are not in the temporary location are being stored. Some of them were sold in the surplus sale. But even though we can't start the mobilization until November, we are still working with the architect, the interior designer, to get things selected so that we can get those orders in and hopefully not have any delays on that end, on the back end when we get ready to move in. Since we are delayed, we are able to keep that 24/7 outdoor Wi-Fi connection available at the library building in the parking lot, so we still have that available, and it will continue to be available until we have to move the circuit. So that'll probably be, November, I would say. So that's the basics about where we are. It is what it is. We're disappointed that we're not already under construction, but we're still looking forward to it, and we're going to be appreciate it even more when it gets here. I've got a few just sketches for you. The first one is showing where the expansion areas are, the shaded, the sort of peach shaded in the back of the library. That's where the expansion area is going to be. Now the parking lot areas that were shaded, we had hoped to redo those parking areas, but this budget was created back in 2015. And so we're working with a 2015 budget in 2021 prices, but we're able to get the building. The parking may have to come later, but we want to expand the parking at some point. But we do have that little grassy area that we can use for overflow parking. So that's what the site looks like. That's where we're able to expand into. And then the next one is showing the new addition and the existing. So this would be the new layout, but you can see that where it says existing, that is the actual building. Now, and really the out exterior of the building is not going to change. The look is going to be the same, and the part that we're adding on is on the back. You're really not going to see a lot of the exterior of the back, but when you come in the library, inside it's going to look very different. The next page is just some pictures of our new we're calling the Pickens Grab and Go. It's a really small space that's inside it's the old Pickens High School, where Mountain Education Charter High School operates now. And so they graciously have allowed us and the school system to use a part of that building for our little library. So we encourage you to stop by and check us out. It opened on June 14th, and we'll just continue operating there until the building is renovated and we're ready to move back in. And then a few pictures just of some things that have been going on. We've been able to continue doing some programming, even though we don't have space in the grab and go. We've been able to use the Roper Park and Pavilion, and we're going to be using the Parks and Rec Department. So we thank everyone that was involved in that for allowing us to have programs there. It's been great. We've had a good turnout, and so we're keeping the normal library operations as much as we possibly can during this time. And then we also had a petting zoo that was a lot of fun, well attended at the parking lot of the library. So, we're still using the parking lot as long as we can, until construction begins. So, and good participation in the reading club. We are in between library managers right now. Our manager, Stacy Hill, resigned to take another opportunity, so we hope to have that position filled by November 1st. And one last thing, our strategic plan, we are getting ready to have a new one in place because the one we're using now ends at the end of this year. And so to help us, we have created 4 surveys that we'll be sharing with our communities beginning the week of August 9th. And in addition to the community surveys, we've also developed a survey specifically for our trustees and another one for our funding agencies. So you all will be getting a survey that's with questions really designed just for our funding agencies. Of course, you can also fill another one out as a community member, because they're 2 different perspectives. But so be on the lookout for that. But that's all I have in my presentation, but I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you for coming today and bringing us up to date for sure, but I'll open up for any questions.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have you seen good attendance in the grab and go? Have you had people
It's
come
gotten off to a slow start, because the people, it takes a while for the word to get around. Even though the newspapers covered it and everything, it just takes a while for people to, and then when they get there, sometimes they're confused about where to go.
Yeah.
But we got some better signage now, so I hopefully that will pick up, yeah.
Good.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
Thank you
very much. All right, so next on our agenda, I know Mr. Barnes has been a part of the steering committee, but I think Mr. Jones is going to kind of give us an update that they've got where the Parks and Rec has been meeting with designers and having conversations about the master plan. So.
Yes, so back in May, Board of Commissioners appointed steering committee in regards to updating and looking at the overall layout of Roper Park as it currently exists. We had our first meeting back on June the 22nd, and that meeting basically was tailored towards getting everyone's ideas and perspectives on what they thought would be basically a reimagination of Roper Park. At that meeting, everything was tossed out as far as ideas were going, and they took those ideas, and the last meeting that we had, which was on July the 26th, they started putting some of those ideas on paper. They have come up with some concepts that really address the main needs, in my opinion, and several of the steering committee members' opinions, that we need down at the park just to move forward, with the way everything is changing. The biggest things, of course, being parking, bathroom access, lighting. We're one of the worst lit parks in North Georgia. We have hardly no lighting down there at Roper Park, as well as the walking track and the disrepair that it's in, and just a good overall updating of the current ball fields that we have. Some of the things that from the first meeting to the next meeting is the fact that we have no storm water management systems down there at Roper Park. So they've taken that into account. That will be reflected on the plans that they produce as well. But we're trying to take not only the steering committee members' opinions on things they would like to see at Roper Park, but also things that staff see as a glaring need. And It's been interesting. It's just working through the process, working through everybody's differing opinions to try to come up with a good set of plans that eventually will be presented to the Board of Commissioners from Loose Design in hopes that we can start using some of the SPOS monies to improve Roper Park. So,
and I'm about to open up, but at the next meeting, is that when they're gonna start putting some cost associated with their plans as far as?
yeah, so on the August 30th meeting, hopefully they'll take everything that we talked about at the last meeting, refine it, and hopefully they'll start working on getting us not only a good set of working, documents, but also if they're going to be able to actually phase this project out. That's the big thing, is that we don't have a lot of available fields in Pickens County, so it's going to be what we can realistically shut down and start working on soon, and then keep the other part open. And then once that part gets done, then we can work on to the next phase. And go ahead.
Brian, I remember we talked, and I thought Amaclola was going to donate a certain amount of lights to y'all. Has that happened?
It's kind of been put on hold. We've got some of the infrastructure in. The biggest thing is we didn't have any power ran to the back of the property. That everything's been ran. We haven't put the meter in yet because we're doing all this other stuff. But the infrastructure is in. We're just waiting to see what phase the improvements to the actual walking path are. We don't want to put $100,000 in lighting to go around the track. That's definitely going to get ripped up and repaired. We'd rather wait and see what this plan shows, and hopefully we can stage some of that stuff out and not waste any taxpayer dollars.
Thank you.
So that's the big thing.
Any opinions?
I'm on his side.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we'd like to do, but there is financial limitations in what we can do. Plus, we can't shut everything down because then we're going to be, everybody have to go play somewhere else in baseball and softball. And that can't happen. So we have to remain, open on some areas, but if there's areas that we can shut down temporarily to get this going, I think it's going to be good for the kids as well as the county.
And we're all set to start using the old high school football field for soccer?
Yes, so now the summer camps are with, thank you, Jesus. Now the summer camp is over with, we're going to get out there and start installing plugs for the soccer lines. We're going to move all the soccer goals to the old high school. It's being maintained every week as far as mowed. Bathrooms are fixed. We're ready to move soccer wholesale over to the old high school.
So I was meeting with Kurt with the road department on working on a parking area for all the soccer families to be able to park. And that lower field part, it just needs gravel, basically to get it up to speed. So we're going to work on trying to get a date to get that parking up. They're putting in a staircase over there to where there's easier access to go in. So it'll be.
So it's the end near the old tennis courts. Okay.
Yep. That way the Mountain Ed on the front side of the building can still function, and then any law enforcement function that uses the side closest to the building can still function, but then we'll have an entire parking space to let families park to go down there. And it's just, really it's just the gravel and getting it spread out. I say that because it's easy. Kurt says it's a lot more work than just saying just gravel, but
I will say, without the availability of the old high school and the city ball fields, a lot of this wouldn't be possible. We just don't have enough area. In a perfect world, we would have 100 acres, we would build the new park, and then we would do something with Roper Park at a later date. That's not possible. So, but with having the old high school football field, we can move pretty much 90% of soccer to that, and then with having the two fields at the city that are both lighted, we can move some of the older games over there once we get into spring 2022. So that has helped out tremendously. So I hope that we can keep those relationships going and keep those accessibility to those as well.
Any other questions? All right, we'll move on to department updates. I'm not gonna go just around the room and call each of you out, but if your department has an update and you want to, I may single a couple of you out at some point.
I'll just go ahead and knock mine out while I'm in the business. So yeah, we just finished up with summer camp. We ran summer camp for the months of June and July. And Congress was having summer camp going. We had the pool going as well. Had some questions about why the pool was closed. Our entire staff is made up of high schoolers and college kids. As soon as school starts, we have to shut the pool down. We just don't have the staff to keep it open once school starts. But the pool's closed down for the summer. We've been practicing football for about the past 3 weeks. Football, we'll have Meet the Dragons event this coming Friday night at the high school, which is all the youth teams, all the cheerleaders, all the high school cheerleaders, the band. It's going to be a pretty big event. So if y'all can make it out of that, that would be pretty neat. Our first game, football, will start on September the 7th, but then we'll only host 4 events at the high school. Our host dates are September 18th and the 25th, and then October the 16th and the 30th. So that will be our host dates for Pickens games. But then pretty much every single weekend we'll have teams going to either Gilmer, Fannin, Lumpkin, Union, so they kind of spread out. But with football starting, community center is a lot quieter than it has been in several months. Still got pickleball going, and then we get to about the first or second week of September and we'll start registering for basketball. So it's really busy right now as far as sports go.
Did you get a lot of nice comments about waiving the fee on the pool?
We did. It's kind of a double-edged sword.
I was going to say.
We did get nice comments. It was I literally last week sent the last refund check for a pool pass. It's been tough finding those people who'd already bought a pool pass to refund them, and consequently with making it free, we basically double our numbers, sometimes triple on a given day, where we usually average around 50 to 75 on a good day. At one time, we had like 150 at the pool. Max capacity is 200 people. That's a lot.
It seemed busy every time.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was definitely used. So I would strongly recommend that whatever your plans are for that 1986 pool, it's a want and it's a need in Pickens County. They truly want some type of water feature in Pickens County. So just keep that in the back of your mind. I don't think we can do anything with the pool on this round of SPLOST, but eventually something is going to have to give on that because it's built in 1986. I mean, it's the oldest thing we have down there, honestly. So, but that's all I have unless you have any questions.
All right. Yes, sir.
Mind if I go?
Go for it.
Okay, so this last month we slowed down a little bit because business license season, so the month of June was, as you saw, extraordinarily high. 44 building permits were issued this last month. 15 of them were site-built homes. 4 of them were commercial permits. 21 certificates of occupancy were issued this last month, and 9 lot split combinations and 3 minor subdivisions were processed this last month. So it has not slowed down all year, and it's staying right at that level every month. The reason why June was so high was business license renewal month.
So did we have any that didn't renew? I know they were looking at trying to track down on the business license renewals.
I don't have all that data yet. They handed this to me right before I walked down just because we're
Pulling them up then.
Yes, sir. So I can get you that information a little bit later, probably today.
That'd work. Thank you. Questions? Bill, I'm not going to let Sloan and Bill get off easy without me singling them out. I know with finance, we've got them later on the agenda, so that was the reason for them. And I've got Paula later on the agenda with some human resources, so you two get a free pass for just a couple minutes.
I've got quite a bit going on.
Kurt's been pretty busy. I was thinking if you don't hurry up and raise your hand, I'm going to call on you.
Johnson Paving's finishing up this week. The their bill is gonna be just a little bit higher than what we contracted for. We got them to drop in and mill, Carver Mill Bridge that wasn't planned for, so that's gonna be a little bit higher. And we got them to extend out. Scare Corn changes names right there at Jordan, and it left a little bit between it and Tilly that didn't really make sense. That's a pretty good size intersection there at Tilly, so we got them to extend the new asphalt on out to the intersection of Tilly. And they were gracious enough to work that into their schedule, and they were really good to work with. They helped us out on both of those, kind of pull it together. But they are finishing up this week. We got Yellow Creek striped, and I've got them lined up to do any of the ones that had lines, and we're actually adding lines on some of these little side streets that we got enough width on now to put a center line on them. We had a different painter come in, and he's refreshed a lot of the stop bars around the county. He added some in some of the three-way stops and that didn't have some. I know the four-way or the three-way stop Head Start, they added stop bars on them, and they refreshed the triangles there at Big Canoe, the little yield triangles. After our road meeting Monday, Eugene checked into the status for our bridges, our state bridge projects, and Thompson Lane, he found out, has already been bid out, so we'll probably see construction start on it sooner than later. And Fairview is set to bid around October, so anytime after the bid, they can start construction. It may be, it may be November, it may be January. On both of those, once they start those, they'll probably shut down for about 8 months because they're such small roads, small bridges. They'll have to shut it down to where they can, do what they've got to do. But, they're gracious enough to do that for us. We really appreciate it, and we'll work around them. This got dumped in my lap yesterday, railroad crossing at 1193 Old Talking Rock Highway. They called and said that they have to do emergency repairs on that crossing, and it's going to be shut down beginning next week, probably 3 or 4 days. I'm just guessing, but they're going to tear that out. They're going to go back with gravel. Like I said, they really didn't have it in their budget to do asphalt, so we may have to work with them, try to get that fixed back. We'll deal with that as it rolls on. But like I said, that got dumped in my lap yesterday afternoon. Just to give everybody a heads up on that, that's 1193 Old Talking Rock. That's below Twin Mountain Lakes. Evan Road and Upper Salem, they are fixed and ready to start chip sealing on, and weather permitting, we'll start that on the 11th, which is next Wednesday. And we're going to start with Evans, and we got a guardrail contractor that's coming in for Twin Mountain Lakes. He should be in the next couple of weeks. We're going to add a guardrail along top of that wall that we built where it kicked off into the lake. And after that, the only thing that's left on Twin Mountain Lakes is getting the asphalt guys back out to skim across that, and that'll have all of our road storm damage sewed up for right now. And that's all I've got.
That's all.
That's all. If y'all have any questions.
So on the Twin Mountain Lakes project, we did the LMIG, the emergency LMIG grant that we got from the state, paid 70% of that. Well, Philip's been working with FEMA, and it looks like there's a strong possibility, we haven't got it locked in yet, but FEMA is going to pick up the remaining 30. So we'll actually be able to have finished that project without any out of county taxpayer funds once it's done. Now, we'll have some that we'll probably have to pay and get reimbursed. But they're working on the FEMA paperwork now, so they'll pick up a big chunk of the other. On Fairview, are you still gonna have to do some plank replacement between now and the time?
Probably. He's gonna send us a recommendation letter on that. I think all we're gonna do is just the damaged boards on the very top, we're gonna replace them. He feels certain
concerns about it lasting all the way till the redo. So.
Yeah, he said that should get us by until then, but I got him, he's gonna send us something to where that's on there.
I have to tell you, I've been down Yellow Creek Road a couple of times. It is so nice. That was Johnson that did that.
Yes, ma'am.
They did a great job.
And it's in the details too. They're good about sloping off into the driveways and all. We don't have those phone calls, hey, I can't get up on the asphalt because there's a 2-foot hump now, or 1-foot hump to get up on it. They're real good about paying attention to the details, and they're awesome to work with.
Good. Anything else, Brooke? Any other departments diving in? So I know we started officially on Monday with kind of our new, August 1st was or Sunday was August 1st, of kind of the shift in our alignment. So Sloan, as the Director of Public Safety, has kind of been working with trying to get familiar with the different departments he's got. And I know Bill's been meeting with all the department heads on his end, just trying to get that extra set of eyes to make sure we're all, I think both of them are really eager to support and dive in. So, do you have any comments, anything going on?
I would actually like to brag on one group that I didn't have anything to do with prior to this. I stayed in my lane, Animal shelter crew, they do a great job over there, guys. I was really impressed as far as the staff, as far as cleanliness, that, I expected to walk in there, just to be honest with you, and it'd be a mess. And not from lack of their work, I'm just saying in general, a mess, the floors be a mess, very clean. I was very impressed. The staff does a good job. They stay very busy. Natasha's doing a good job, but the staff really does a great job in the back. I'm still learning that area. I'll be visiting when I can over there. I'll be helping clean water, whatever I got to do. I told them when I can help, I'll be there to help, and that means doing everything that I would expect them to do. So, very impressed, and really that's the only department that I didn't know a whole lot about. Me and Cole work together well, so as far as the county marshal's office, EMA and the rest of them, I've been pretty much assisting with them the whole time, so very impressed with the animal shelter. If you've not been over it, it's worth your time to visit.
I'd like to tag on to that. My granddaughter loves cats, so we went over to visit Natasha and look at the cats. Like you, I was so impressed. Very clean. The staff was very friendly and nice.
That's debatable sometimes, but you'll get used to it. They're really a little better than you think. That's debatable sometimes.
But I was impressed, so I agree with you on that.
Thank you both.
How
Everyone
many
over there
cats?
works really, really
You're
hard, and they're over there to take care of the animals and give them a good place if they can find permanent homes. Thank both of y'all. We appreciate that.
How many cats got a permanent home out of that business?
Zero. She works for Nana's house.
A forever home, so. All right. So we'll move on into the policy review. I know it's an item that we've got listed as policy review for overtime during holiday pay periods. And I'll introduce kind of the topic, and then if Paula's got, we'll go back and forth. It had been brought to my attention from both the road and the water department. We'd had a couple of conversations, and this came up during the Christmas holiday season and then shortly thereafter, where we had pay periods where there was multiple holidays on one pay period. So, for instance, Christmas, there was a pay period with a 16-hour holiday period within there. Well, that was also a time when there was a winter storm. So all of those crews got called out and had to work through the night trying to get the road scraped, get the road salted, and the water department had frozen pipes. They had to get out and get those things prepared and taken care of as well. Because of the way our policy is currently written, if you don't work a full 40-hour, which is based on the FLSA standards, federal standards, if you don't work a physical work week of 40 hours, you're not eligible for overtime. So during these holiday periods where there was 16 hours of holidays, they had to get 16 additional hours of call-out before they were ever eligible for the first hour of overtime. So what they had proposed and had asked us to look into was to look at modifying our current handbook, our current policy that includes that during an emergency call-out, during holiday pay periods and during an emergency call-out, that we allow them to actually receive overtime pay. And I know it's gonna require a significant, I know Karen's probably in the back wanting an oxygen tank, because on the payroll side, trying to document, to come up when does it qualify versus when does it not qualify. So it will require procedures from the department head or above to be able to approve, to show that this was an emergency call out, that it is eligible, or if it's not eligible. But that was the concern. What we have right now meets the federal guidelines. This is the federal regulation, says this is approved to where they have to have 40 actual working hours. Sick leave doesn't count, vacation doesn't count, and then the holidays don't count. What we were discussing was the possibility of changing that to allow for, during those holiday pay periods, to allow for an overtime if they do get called out in the middle of the night. Because if you're called out on Christmas night, they do get their straight time, they get their straight hour pay. But you're called out to leave your family on Christmas Eve and scrape a road for 8 hours. If there's ever been a time that probably was more deserving of overtime, I would imagine, during those seasons.
And we can do that locally within.
It's our policy that would control it. Now, we would have a lot of things that would have to iron out. I know that we're not at a point, we're in a work session to discuss it, so we would have to prepare it to vote on a change during an upcoming meeting to actually make the change to our workbook that we've kind of thought through all of the possible scenarios and how that would work with payroll. Because I don't want to make it to where there's not we would have to create a form that would be a sign off to where there would be times where it was shown as to the reason why. I think during the original request, they were talking about during holidays and during other times as well. I think that right now, if we stay focused on the holiday pay periods, if you look back over the number of holiday pay periods there are, because there's some of them are multiple holidays during one pay period. You're looking at a limited number of pay periods that would be affected, but it seems to be, and I know this sounds crazy, but in the last 7 months, I can say that's when they seem to get called out the most. The road department gets called out on trees down, the water department on a water line, and it seems to happen every holiday pay period that they do, and so it keeps coming back up as a conversation for consideration. So I just wanted to bring it up to where y'all could be familiar and then ask questions if there's there. And I don't know if I may have not covered it. Paulo may have a whole lot more on that than what I just described.
Sounds like you've done pretty good.
We're including department heads on that overtime, aren't we?
Yeah. Well, and it really won't significantly change our overtime. I mean, when you look at the number of employees affected, the emergency ones, and I'm ignoring him when he comes. But when you look at the realistic approach, and when you're looking budget as a whole for these departments, the amount of overtime that it would change would not be overly significant. I mean, you're looking at a few $1,000s for the entire year. But it, as an impact for the guys that are getting called out and having to work through those situations.
It's a big impact. That will be a great help for them. And it's in the grand scheme of things, it's not a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
So if y'all are open to the consideration, we'll start preparing everything for the next board meeting to kind of have that ready to present at it.
Yeah, go ahead and do that. Yeah.
Well, I'll get Karen and Paula to get their brains together, and that way we make sure on the payroll side and then that our policy doesn't affect the payroll side to really mess her up. So, because I don't want her mad if at all possible.
A lot of things.
All right, so on the next item we have on the selection of our audit firm, I know that we discussed in a board meeting that we were going to do that during the July work session. With the holiday schedule and when it fell, we didn't have a July work session, so we've got that. I'm going to turn it over to Bill and Charlene. I'm not sure which one's going to go first. I think you guys have a packet in your folder that's the kind of got what they've got, and you guys can go through that.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I'll start us off. So these are two very, very important processes that we've got coming up with Looking at Finance, which is the selection of the new auditor beginning with the 21 year, and then the budget process for the 22 year. And we'll start with the process to select a new audit firm, and really the first substantive slide is on frame 3. And this is just a reminder, a very important reminder, that the General Assembly has basically dictated and mandated that you all, the Board of Commissioners, are the party that has to select the audit firm by vote. And so that's basically just there to show the statutory authority for that. If we go to frame 4, then that basically segues into the roles and responsibilities in this particular process. There's the Board of Commissioners, you all, as we just saw, that's the decision. You're the decision makers on this. There'll be an audit recommendation committee that will basically prep the review and analysis of what the bidding firms basically provide to us in the form of proposals, and that will consist of the chairman, the director of administration, the director of public safety, the finance director, and the county attorney. And then the finance department at ground level will have all of the interaction with the candidate audit firms for this. If we go to frame 5, when we as the recommendation committee and you as the decision makers actually looking at this, we're recommending this formula to be the approach for the way that we think about things. And this is the way we'll evaluate and then make the recommendation along these lines. The approach 20%, experience 20%, expertise 20%, fees 20%, proposal process performance 10%, staffing 10%. Now, in the dark green part of both, you see first year transition. The reason that approach is on here at all is because of the first year transition. Approach, generally, these firms will have the same approach to conducting audits. And so you don't see a lot of difference in normal situations on that because it's so similar. However, in any basically first year transition from one auditor to another auditor, there's always a premium or heavy emphasis placed on how is a firm going to approach that first year. What are you going to look at? What are you going to emphasize? How many of these have you done? And can you basically map that out for us? That's why approach is on there, and that's why it's weighted so heavily being on there. So that's basically a layout of how we'll look at it.
And on frame 6, it kind of goes through the process of how we would go about selecting that new audit firm. We'd like to kind of propose the issue starting as November 1st, and you can see that the process that we would go through that time frame and have an anticipated award date by January 14 of 2022 to be able to get the new firm on board for the new fiscal year. You can see on frame 7, you can see the history of the audit firms that had been with the county.
And in terms of the potential audit firms that we're looking at, this will be an open process. Any firm that thinks it's qualified and basically wants to undertake this audit will be given the opportunity to issue a proposal, and most of them will be selected for interview, if not all of them. But what we wanted to do here is to just give you 4 examples of the kind of firms that we'll be looking at, and it may be that we invite these to propose and just not leave it to chance, and we may invite others in addition to this. But this is just to give you an idea of what's out there. Malden and Jenkins is the largest firm on this list. They're a 4-state regional firm headquartered in Atlanta. They've got about 330 people. For the last audit for these particular respective counties, they took Forsyth, Jackson, Lumpkin, Paulding, and Whitfield as examples. Nichols, Cawley and Associates is a Georgia firm. They've got 7 or 8 offices in Georgia. They've got about 25 professionals, and right now they do Cherokee, Cobb, Coweta, and Polk, for example. R.M. Dodds and Companies in Calhoun, they have about 12 professionals, and they do Gordon, and these are listed alphabetically. And Rustin and Company has 2 offices in Georgia. They're a Georgia firm, about 20 professionals, and right now they do Bartow, Carroll, Haversham, and Watt. So those are just some examples of some of the folks that we'll be seeing, and there are a good number of highly qualified firms out there, and we want to basically help you all get the information processed to you so you can make the best decision for the county. Any questions on that before we go into the budget process? 22 budget process and timetable. I'll start this and Charlene will finish it. This is basically another anchoring of the situation in the law. The Georgia Code says that the budget officer defines a budget officer as a local government official charged with budget preparation and administration for the local government. The General Assembly in our local act basically, as we see in that second green box, designates the chairperson of the Board of Commissioners as that person. So legally, by law, the chairman will be presenting the budget. Obviously, finance will do, working with the departments, will do a tremendous amount of legwork on that. So with that, we'll move into the process and timetable.
As you can see on frame 11, we have kind of proposed a budget process and timeline period. We would like to get the letters out to the departments to start the process, and then we would kind of go through a meeting with the departments on the budget of the 2021 to kind of get our hands wrapped around understanding how the 2021 budgets were put into place in order to start processing the 2022 budgets. You can see here that those items would be like in August, we would do the other few items through September, doing the preliminary meetings, and into October doing review, revenue projections, and then meeting with the department heads with the board in October. And then around November, we're planning to do budget recommendations that have been presented by the board, and then also any work sessions that may need to be done as well to hopefully implement the budget anticipated and adopted by the end of December. On frame 12, you can see that the budget committee, we were proposing to have the chairman of the board, the director of public safety, director of administration, the finance director, and human resource, to be able to put all that together in a, you know, if there's any questions and all of that, we could.
I have questions. If I'm reading this right, this is very different from how we've done it in the past, where when we had budget meetings, like the three of us would meet with each department head as they were working through the budget, and this doesn't sound that way to me.
Actually, we have put we are proposing to put in a new step to kind of, for the finance department to meet with the department heads to kind of work through some of that before they actually meet with you. But you can see that they will be meeting with the board in November. So we just put in an extra step in there. So on frame 11. So the department heads would be meeting with you around November.
On the work session portion, they've just got it phrased as a work session instead of as the budget hearing. So the Board of Commissioners work session where we would all sit down collectively with each of them in a similar fashion to what was done. We just had more legwork before it got to that point, so.
Okay, because you've been to the previous ones we had.
Yeah.
So it will be like that or different?
As close to that as we possibly can get. But we'll work through it to make sure that everybody's comfortable with it. They have the opportunity to ask all the questions they want to. So yeah, we're not trying to pull the step away. We're just trying to add some steps before you get to that point so that everybody knows what they're trying to present to the board can work before it's presented to the board. So that way it helps with the clarification. So it's just adding a level of those October meetings before it gets to the November meeting. Does that make sense?
Chris?
Yes.
Commissioner, I don't see how it could be any different than what y'all have done before in terms of that particular meeting and the way it would be conducted. As Chris said, we're just adding steps in the beginning. And one reason we're adding one of those steps is because Charlene and I are new. So we've got to get our hands around how 21 was done from an operational standpoint. Well, otherwise, we're not going to be able to understand 22. And then to Chris's point, we're just going to then do some legwork before it gets to you, you know, so that we'll just be more sure of what kind of ground when we get to you with what's proposed.
It just moves it 2 weeks further out. Instead of being mid-October, I think was the last year's timetable. It moves it to the 1st of November so that they can have those additional meetings in mid-October and then bring it before us, and we'll schedule that timetable in the first part of November. So, not to change, just to add to, so, more meetings. Y'all have any questions, any additional on that? Concerns or? The general discussion portion, I'm going to kind of kick that off for just 1 second, is in terms of, as a community, and I'm trying to be cautious because I know that people have strong opinions both ways on this when you talk about COVID and reactions and responses. We are seeing a growing spread throughout Pickens County. I don't think the numbers on the state's website are updated daily necessarily. I mean, I don't know what the lag is that causes it, but we know of several that had tested positive yesterday, but on the state side, it only showed an increase by 1. So we are seeing that number is about to start to go exponential. We have been affected in a couple of departments with isolated employees, not in this building at this point, but we do have some employees that have had a positive test. We had let our COVID, I'm trying to figure out how it's phrased. Emergency paid sick leave. We let that expire in late spring because when things settled back down, it expired. So at the current time, if somebody's out, then it's their standard sick leave. To follow the Department of Health's guidelines, depending on, and there's several categories now. They've added an unvaccinated exposure with symptoms, or positive with symptoms and without symptoms, and they've added a vaccinated with, so there's 4 different criteria. And we're starting to see those start to come in, and we want to make sure we're encouraging employees that are positive not to come to work just because of a lack of sick leave. So one thing that just in discussion to kind of see, and it would require when we come back in at our later meeting, if we did an amendment to our agenda there, to reinstate following the recommendations to provide emergency sick leave to prevent that. And that was just wanted to discuss it here before we went into a meeting to see if y'all have feelings one way or the other.
I think we need to reinstate. That's my.
So, over the next couple of weeks, we were talking about we could wait until the next meeting, but if it spreads at the pace that they're anticipating a spread, we may be looking at virtual options and things again for a few meetings if we reach that point. I'm not trying to kind of create a fear to put it. I mean, obviously, if you've been vaccinated, there's certain criteria that you follow. If you've not, I mean, the state has kind of put out a whole new level of standards, but I would encourage, especially with all our department heads that are here, to be smart. I mean, just common sense. If you can avoid being in close quarters with people for long periods of time, stay as far away. Go back to the wash your hands thing and just try to be careful when you're in big gatherings. The smarter we are, the more we can kind of control. And if you start feeling bad, then don't immediately go get checked. Or if you have employees that report feeling bad, get checked. Let's not try to ignore it. If you're uncomfortable and you feel the need to wear a mask, then I would strongly encourage to do so. If at this point we're not putting anything mandatory in the facility, because I think that a large majority of employees that I know that work in the administration building at least have went through the vaccination process and went through and are going. So I want to encourage everybody just to really pay attention. Don't just ignore it, because we are seeing more cases. We're not, at this point, seeing as many severe cases. I think that probably some of the vaccination may be affecting that, but there are several that are getting sick that are being transported to the hospital. Hospitals are filling up again. So let's pay attention as we go forward, for sure. And then when we move into the other meeting, we can add that onto our agenda at that point.
Let's do that.
Okay. All right. Any other general discussion that you guys have that you want to bring up? Any comments or general discussion from anybody here with us today?
I was going to say that COVID pay is a big help. We have people that live week to week, and we're asking them to stay home for the greater good, and it really does help.
It was one of those things we hoped when when we let it expire, that would be the last time we would ever have to see it, but I don't think that it's an option that we get to have the luxury of right now. Before we finish up, I know Mr. Reeves kind of brought in, right before we walked in, kind of brought in the preliminary initial information on the digest stuff that's coming through, so we'll be able to start reviewing that process and start working through that over the coming weeks. So we'll make sure as soon as we've got that to get it in your hands to where each of you see what's there. So I do thank you for getting that. It's August the 5th. It's probably one of the earlier times we've been able to get hands on it. I think that's a sign of y'all doing a great job back there. We appreciate it. Well, Roy, I don't want to give Roy credit, though. I was going to let you.
It hurts, I know.
It's sometimes painful, but no, I know Roy and Stephanie and their team back there have done a phenomenal job trying to get all the data together and then get it over to you guys to get it prepared. So I just want to say thank you to both of y'all. I think that's going to help us as we look into this budget process. The more we can do those parallel with one another, the better we can prepare for next year and plan better. So I think that helps.
And I'd like to just mention one thing on our department. Where everybody goes to the Q Public website to look at all the information for the properties, we have finally completed our aerial photography update for 2021. So when you log on and you're looking, that's what you're going to see. It was captured January 20th of 2021. And for most of the people that have lived here most of their life, we know how much change this county is seeing. Some people act like there's nothing happening in Pickens County. You can go and click off 2021, you can click on 2018. You'll see the difference. And if you want to go back to 2015, you've got that option too. So if you want to look at an area and see how much it's been impacted, it's right there at your fingertips.
And it is a neat tool. He showed me when you click back and forth, you can see the buildings go up, and pretty fascinating. Well, thank you. It is now 10:51, so we'll adjourn our work session meeting.